What if I told you that two of the most iconic figures in entertainment, one a legendary movie star, the other the most influential podcaster in the world, tried to expose the darkest secrets of Hollywood and no one listened? What if everything we think we know about the entertainment industry is a lie? You won't believe what these two men discovered. And what's even crazier, they tried to warn us. Let's break this down. Joe Rogan, the man whose podcast reaches millions of listeners every single week. The man whose name is now tied to the notorious Epstein scandal. The internet erupts in confusion. Social media explodes. Wait, Joe Rogan was connected to Epstein, as if the world just discovered a hidden truth. But here's the twist. This isn't the whole story, not by a long shot. Let's rewind to 2017, back when Epstein sought out Rogan. Why? No one knows for sure, but he reached out to Lawrence Cross, a physicist and former guest on the Joe Rogan Experience. Epstein wanted to make an introduction to get close to Rogan, but when the request was passed on to him, Rogan didn't hesitate. "Are you high?" Rogan responded, refusing without a second thought. No meeting, no interaction. Completely shutting it down. And now in 2026, here we are watching the fallout. Joe Rogan, in the most public way possible, addresses the Epstein files on his podcast. He calls out the very people who tried to hide the truth. He speaks out against the government for concealing information, redacting names, and covering up the people involved in Epstein's web of connections. In a time when most would shy away from such a hot topic, Rogan stands tall, unafraid to speak his truth. Both of these men, Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan, saw something that most of us missed. They saw the system for what it truly is. They saw through the illusions and the distractions, the veil that Hollywood, the media, and powerful elites have cast over our eyes. While the rest of the world was lost in superhero movies, reality TV, and viral trends, these two were trying to tell us something. They were trying to warn us. But this isn't about conspiracies or paranoia. This is about two men who have been on the inside, who have seen the gears of the machine turn, and who understand the secrets it hides. And in the end, they both chose to walk away. Jim Carrey in 2014 with his cryptic message to the world, and Joe Rogan in 2026 by calling out the very people who tried to suppress the truth. Think about it. While most of us were glued to our screens, consumed by distractions and entertainment, Carrey and Rogan were sending signals. They were trying to get us to wake up, to look beyond the surface. And here's the scary part. Everything Jim Carrey warned us about in 2014, it's happening right now. But here's the twist. What if Jim Carrey wasn't just playing around? What if he was trying to tell us something far darker? And it doesn't stop there. Let's fast forward to 2026, because what Joe Rogan just revealed will send chills down your spine. You won't believe the truth that's finally coming out. The Epstein files we're seeing today, they're just a glimpse. What's really hidden beneath the surface, the names and secrets that remain out of sight, that's where the real story lies. And Joe Rogan is using his massive platform to expose it. "The Epstein files scare the hell out of me. This is definitely not a hoax," he said just a few weeks ago. And he's right. The truth, as ugly as it is out there, and it's far worse than we realize. But let's circle back. Jim Carrey in 2014. He's on Jimmy Kimmel Live promoting a silly comedy sequel. But instead of the usual antics, he walks on stage and starts making an odd hand gesture, a triangle with his fingers, sticking his tongue out. The audience is bewildered, unsure whether they should laugh or be concerned. Kimmel, playing along, asks, "Is that a gang sign?" But Jim Carrey isn't playing around. He leans forward and with a serious tone declares, "This is the secret symbol of the Illuminati, and you're part of it." He goes on to say that talk show hosts, actors, and others in the entertainment industry have been paid by the government to distract the masses, to keep people docile and unaware of what's really happening. The audience laughs nervously, unsure whether Jim is joking or speaking the truth. But as the viral video spreads, the comments begin to shift. People start questioning the deeper message behind Jim's words. Was he just being his usual weird self, or was he trying to tell us something important? Fast forward a few years, Jim Carrey's life changes dramatically. In 2015, after the tragic loss of his girlfriend, he goes through what many would describe as a spiritual awakening. He walks away from the chase for fame. He starts painting, speaking about the emptiness of Hollywood and the meaningless pursuit of fame. At a New York Fashion Week event, he's asked about the celebration happening around him. "What is thigh?" "It's all about?" the reporter asks, and Jim responds, "There's no meaning to any of this, so I found the most meaningless thing I could come to and joined it." It's a stark contrast to the Jim Carrey we once knew. It's the Jim Carrey who sees through the facade. In 2022, when the infamous Oscar incident occurs, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock on live TV, Jim Carrey is disgusted. He calls out Hollywood for its hypocrisy. "Hollywood is spineless," he says. "We're not the cool club anymore." It's clear now. Jim Carrey walked away from the system because he saw the truth and he wasn't willing to continue playing the game. And Joe Rogan? In 2026, he's doing what Jim tried to do in 2014. He's using his platform to expose the corruption and lies. He talks about the Epstein files, about the people whose names have been hidden and the ones who were allowed to remain protected. If they're hiding the names of people who aren't victims, Rogan says, then what are they hiding? Joe Rogan, with his millions of listeners, has more power than most media outlets, and he's using that power to demand transparency, to call out the government for its complicity. Both Carrey and Rogan have seen the system for what it is. They've seen the truth, and both walked away from it. Jim Carrey stopped chasing Hollywood blockbusters. He stopped playing the game. He started painting, speaking his mind, and showing the world that fame isn't everything. Joe Rogan built his own empire, away from the control of Hollywood, creating his own platform where he's free to speak his truth. Both of them kept their integrity, they kept their souls, and now they're trying to make us see what they saw all along. While we were distracted by our screens, Carrey and Rogan were trying to warn us. They were trying to show us that the entertainment industry, Hollywood, the media, it's all just a distraction, a carefully crafted illusion. And the people behind the scenes, the ones making the decisions that affect all of us, they're the ones with the secrets, the Epstein files. They're just a glimpse into a much darker reality. The rest is hidden from us, buried beneath layers of lies and deceit. So what do you think? Do you believe Jim Carrey was trying to expose the truth back in 2014? Do you trust Joe Rogan to keep pushing for transparency on the Epstein files? Are there more secrets we still don't know about? One thing is certain, Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan aren't done talking. They're not done asking questions, and they're not done exposing the truth. The question is, are we ready to listen? Yes, Joe Rogan, the man whose podcast reaches millions of listeners every single week. The man whose name is now linked to the infamous Epstein scandal, and the internet loses its mind. The news spreads like wildfire across Twitter, TikTok, and everywhere else. Wait, Joe Rogan was connected to Epstein? But hold on, this isn't the whole story. This is where things get really interesting. Let's rewind to 2017. Epstein reached out to Rogan through a physicist named Lawrence Krauss. Krauss had been a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, and Epstein wanted to arrange an introduction. But when Rogan heard about it, his response was clear. "Are you high? I'm not doing this. I'm not meeting with him." Rogan refused flat out. No meeting, no contact, nothing. And now, in 2026, Rogan is speaking out. On his podcast, he calls out the Trump administration for covering up information in the Epstein files. He's calling out the government for hiding the names of powerful people linked to Epstein. It's a bold move from someone who's not afraid to speak his mind. Both men, Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan, saw something that most of us missed. They saw the machine for what it really is. While most of us were distracted by the glitzy world of Hollywood, they were trying to warn us. They were trying to expose the lies. But this isn't about conspiracy theories or baseless claims. This is about two men who have been inside the machine. They've seen how it operates and they know the secrets. And both of them, Jim Carrey in 2014 and Joe Rogan in 2026, walked away. They refused to participate in the system. Think about it. While the rest of us were scrolling through TikTok, watching Marvel movies, living our daily lives, these two were sending out warnings. And here's the chilling part. Everything Jim Carrey said back in 2014, it was true. He was right about Hollywood, about the media, about the system. The Epstein files we're seeing now, those are just the documents the government is allowing us to see. And even those are frightening. Joe Rogan himself said it best. "The Epstein files scare the hell out of me. This is definitely not a hoax." The truth is far more sinister than most people realize. Now let me take you back to that pivotal moment on November 14th, 2014. Jim Carrey is on Jimmy Kimmel Live, there to promote Dumb and Dumber 2, a sequel to his iconic film. But instead of the usual antics, Jim steps onto the stage and starts making a bizarre gesture. His fingers form a triangle and his tongue sticks out. The audience is puzzled. Kimmel doesn't know how to react. "What is that? Is that some sort of gang sign?" Kimmel asks, genuinely confused. But Jim Carrey isn't playing around. He leans in and suddenly the mood shifts. People in TV and sitcoms have been hired by the government to distract you. To make you laugh, to make you docile, so you don't know what's really going on, Jim declares. It's a shocking statement, one that rattles the audience. Some laugh nervously, unsure whether to take him seriously or dismiss him as just another crazy comedian. But in that moment, Jim Carrey wasn't joking. He was trying to make a point, one that goes far beyond the surface-level humor that people expect from him. He was attempting to expose something far more sinister, a system of control that has been manipulating the public for decades. And yet, his words were largely ignored or laughed off, as just part of his eccentric, larger-than-life persona. But here's the thing, what Jim Carrey was saying wasn't just a rant or a bizarre moment on a talk show. It was a warning that many of us missed. He saw the darker side of Hollywood and the entertainment industry, the lies, the manipulation, and the powerful people pulling the strings behind the scenes. And he was trying to tell us all, but no one wanted to listen. Fast forward to today. Joe Rogan, too, is raising his voice and calling out the very same system. Both men have seen the truth, and they're not afraid to speak it. Jim Carrey did it in 2014 through humor and satire. Joe Rogan is doing it in 2026 with a bold refusal to be part of the system and a public call for transparency. Both of these men, in their own ways, have become whistleblowers, trying to expose the corruption that runs deep in the heart of Hollywood, the media, and the powerful elites that control the narrative. And while we were all caught up in the distractions, they were trying to tell us what was really going on. The question is, are we finally ready to listen? The audience is half laughing, half confused, unsure of whether Jim Carrey is being serious. But this is no joke. Jim is calling out the entertainment industry, the system, and the powers that be. He's attempting to expose the lies, the manipulation, and the structures of control that most of us never question. But just as quickly as it began, his tone shifts. "What I was really trying to say," he says, abruptly changing his demeanor, "is that people are really going to enjoy Dumb and Dumber this weekend." The crowd laughs nervously, relieved that it's back to normal, as if the awkward moment never happened. The interview continues like nothing is wrong, but the video goes viral. Millions watch, but the comments aren't the same as they once were. People are no longer laughing. They are no longer dismissing it as a quirky bit. They're questioning Jim Carrey's message. They're asking themselves, what was he really trying to say? A shift happens in Jim Carrey's life after the devastating loss of his girlfriend in 2015. What some have called a spiritual awakening begins. Jim stops chasing fame and the Hollywood machine. He retreats from the world he once ruled and instead starts painting. He begins to talk about consciousness, about how ultimately meaningless fame really is, and the emptiness that comes with it. At a New York Fashion Week event, a reporter, still trying to grasp his presence, approaches him. "Jim, I've covered a lot of fashion weeks, but you're just wandering the streets. Is it true you need a date to the party?" Jim, now a changed man, responds with complete detachment. "There's no meaning to any of this, so I found the most meaningless thing I could come to and joined it. Here I am." This is not the Jim Carrey we once knew, the wild and unpredictable funneman. This is a new Jim, a man who's had enough of the facade, the distractions, and the system he once glorified. By 2022, Jim's disillusionment with Hollywood is clear. The turning point comes during the Oscars when Will Smith slaps Chris Rock in front of millions of viewers. The world watches in shock as Hollywood stands by, applauding Smith's violent act. But Jim Carrey, known for his unwavering stance on morality and authenticity, is disgusted. "Hollywood is spineless en masse," he says. "It's a clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore." Jim had been on the inside and seen it all, and now he was done. Done with the superficiality, done with the system. And as if on cue, Joe Rogan, too, begins to speak out. By 2026, Joe Rogan has firmly established himself as one of the most influential voices in the media landscape. He has over 50 million listeners per month, more than most TV networks and news channels. On his podcast, he begins speaking out about the Epstein files. He directly calls out the government for its attempts to hide names, redact information, and cover up the truth. If they're hiding the names of people who aren't victims, then what are they hiding? Rogan asks with his signature no-nonsense attitude. Rogan doesn't shy away. He uses his massive platform to expose the cover-ups, pulling no punches. "This is definitely not a hoax," he says, echoing Jim Carrey's warning. And the truth is, both of these men, Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan, have seen the dark side of Hollywood. They've seen the truth behind the curtain that the industry works so hard to keep hidden. And even though it's cost them both, they've tried to expose it. They've tried to wake people up to the reality that's being carefully concealed. They've called out the powers that be. And both of them paid a price for it, but they walked away from the game, refusing to be part of a system that didn't align with their integrity. Jim Carrey walked away from the spotlight. choosing authenticity over the fame and fortune he once craved. Joe Rogan, too, left Los Angeles and built his own platform, free from the control of corporate media. The difference now is that both men have kept their souls intact, unlike the industry they tried to leave behind. And now, they're using their voices to expose the truth, no matter the consequences. Joe Rogan's name in the Epstein files doesn't mean what most people think. It doesn't imply that he was part of it, quite the opposite, in fact. It means that he refused to be a part of it. He said no. And that's why his name even appeared. He stood his ground when so many others didn't. He rejected the system, choosing not to be swayed by the power and influence that Epstein held. As we move forward, the pattern becomes undeniable. Jim Carrey warned us in 2014. And now, in 2026, Joe Rogan is proving him right. These two men have seen the truth, unfiltered and unflinching, and they've tried to expose the dark realities of Hollywood, the media, and the corrupt system that controls it all. It's time we start listening. It's time we start questioning everything. Jim Carrey walked away from the very industry that made him famous. He chose authenticity over fame, truth over the superficial, and art over the machine. Joe Rogan, in his own way, broke free from the shackles of Hollywood's control. He built his own empire, his own platform, where he can speak his truth without fear of repercussions. Both men have kept their integrity, their authenticity, and their souls intact. And now, they are the ones trying to show us the truth. The truth that has been hidden in plain sight, concealed behind layers of lies and distractions. So tell me, what do you think? Do you believe Jim Carrey was trying to expose the truth about Hollywood in 2014? Do you trust Joe Rogan to continue pushing for transparency on the Epstein files? Or do you think there is even more to uncover, more secrets still locked away? One thing is certain, these two aren't done talking. They haven't finished speaking their truth. They aren't finished warning us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. In a world where most of us are consumed by entertainment, scrolling through social media, watching the latest blockbuster, Jim and Joe saw the cracks in the facade. They've been trying to tell us what they've seen, what they've learned for years. It's not about conspiracy theories or paranoia. It's about two men who tried to open our eyes to the reality of the world behind the glittering curtain of Hollywood. The question is, will we finally listen? Now that you know the truth, it's time to take action. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Do you believe Jim Carrey was trying to expose Hollywood in 2014? Do you trust Joe Rogan to keep pushing for transparency on the Epstein files? Or do you think there's even more that we still don't know? Hit that like button if you're ready to start questioning everything, and don't forget to subscribe for more truth, straight from the people who aren't afraid to speak out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.